So good evening, everyone, and welcome. I would like to call to order the Whatcom County Council's Criminal Justice and Public Safety meeting for April 3rd, 2018. And we're out here in Deming Library today to talk about criminal justice. So I'm going to turn it over to our facilitator, Holly O'Neill.
Thank you very much. Glad to see you all here. And as Councilmember Buchanan just mentioned, my name is Holly. I live here in South Fork, I guess I should point. And I'm so glad you all came out tonight because it's a spring evening, and it's hard to get people out to anything when it's not a raging emergency. And yet, I think that's really the point of these sessions, is to have time to talk when things aren't a raging emergency, and we can just get some input early on in the process in terms of thinking about these issues. So thank you, and I especially want to acknowledge, also in addition to Congress. I got promoted.
I'm Senator by you next week.
Too good. Councilmember Byrd. Council members all sit here. So thank you all for coming here. And thank you, gentlemen, for making this time for all of us to be heard. So first I want to just speak about the survey. We had to do a survey when we came in. This is the first draft of the survey that we want to clean up and make available. So after the session, if you have any specific feedback on the survey instrument itself, I would really appreciate hearing that. Because we already found a glaring error right away, which is on question number 11. I'll point you in this direction. There's a scale which doesn't show up. So on number 11, go ahead and when you go through it, put a little letter right next to your feelings. I am sure there are other problems with this survey. So again, if it's not obvious, feel free to write stuff in the margins or come and talk to me, and we'll clean it up. So tonight what we got for y'all is we're going to start with a short video to frame the issues that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to give a little information in terms of how we're going to hold this session, but basically we have about an hour to have each person get a chance to speak. The whole session will be recorded, and the hope is that we're going to be able to use these sessions, there's 8 happening throughout Whatcom County, to really get a good sense about what people are thinking and feeling. And then we're going to put those together into a report. So after we have the public comment, Barry will come close the meeting for us. And again, if you have other questions that didn't get answered tonight or other input, just write them down under survey. We'll be collecting those as part of our report. So before we get started, one other thing, the bathrooms, if you're not familiar with the Deming Library, the bathrooms are right here around the corner. And there's a drinking fountain out there as well. So feel free to get up if you need to use the restroom or get a drink of water. Please feel free. Any questions before we start? Okay. Then let's watch our exciting video. Ready?
Hello, everyone. I'm Barry Buchanan, Chair of the Whatcom County Council's Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I want to welcome you to the 2018 listening tour. We're reaching out to residents of Whatcom County to get your thoughts on our criminal justice system. Tonight, we will present an overview of where we are today and a timeline of events leading up to now. However, the main focus of tonight's meeting is to gather your input, so let's get started. The Whatcom County Jail was built in 1949 and until 1983 was located on the 6th floor of the county courthouse. In the early 80s, the State Jail Commission funded construction of the current correctional facility located next to the courthouse in downtown Bellingham, and the jail was completed and occupied in 1984. Over the next 2 decades, the county took numerous steps to enhance its criminal justice system, including creation of a jail alternatives program, establishment of a law and justice council, establishment of a blue ribbon panel on criminal justice and public safety needs, establishment of a drug court, expansion of the jail alternatives program and facility to include more beds and divert more offenders from full custody, adoption of an ordinance imposing 0.1% sales tax for criminal justice purposes, and passage of a voter-approved sales tax increase of 0.1% with part of the funding proposed for a new jail project and part for construction and operation of a temporary interim minimum security work center. In 2006, the Minimum Security Interim Work Center opened and planning for a new jail began in earnest. Over the next few years, money was appropriated to fund a jail site selection process, facilities planning, and preparation of studies necessary to locate a new jail in Whatcom County. A jail planning task force was formed, and the hard work of this group resulted in recommendations for tangible next steps in development of a new jail proposal. The council approved a recommendation for the county executive to move forward with jail planning by hiring a professional jail planner and identifying parcels of land that could support siting of a horizontally designed jail. In January of 2013, the county purchased approximately 40 acres on LaBounty Road in Ferndale as the proposed site for a new jail, and in the fall of 2014, Council approved a contract with DLR Group for design and engineering services. In 2015, the Council established the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force to study ways to prevent and reduce incarceration in Whatcom County. That same month, the Council approved a resolution to place a measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund a new jail at the LaBounty Road site. In November 2015, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. Over the next 2 years, the county secured a jail facilities use agreement with other Whatcom County jurisdictions, and the County Council held a public hearing to gather citizen input on jail size. The Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force worked diligently to prepare recommendations for safely and effectively reducing incarceration of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency, and also to minimize jail utilization by pretrial defendants who can safely be released. In July 2017, the County Council adopted an ordinance to place another measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund costs associated with financing, construction, maintenance, and operation of jail facilities and incarceration prevention programs, including medical and behavioral health facilities and programs. In November of 2017, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. So, that brings us to where we are today. The County Council formed this committee to ensure thorough study and review of criminal justice and public safety. Our first priority is to reach out to the community and give citizens the chance to provide input and ideas for enhancing public safety and criminal justice in Whatcom County. Our process going forward will be to compile the data from these listening sessions and work with the Incarceration, Prevention, and Reduction Task Force to begin Phase 2, a needs assessment. The needs assessment will address who should be in our jail, where the jail should be located, a capital and operating budget, and what is the right size jail for Whatcom County. Once the needs assessment is complete, we will begin Phase 3, which is the facility planning process. The committee appreciates you coming out tonight and sharing your views with us about criminal justice in Whatcom County.
So as we're hearing from everybody tonight, when it's your time to speak, you can speak to whatever on this topic you feel called to address. But these are some questions or issues that we've already heard that the committee would really especially like your input on. So who should be in our jail? The location of the new jail, the size of the new jail, the cost of the new jail, and anything that you heard from the presentation that was related to other ways to reduce incarceration and prevent incarceration. So anything that you feel moved to share, I'm going to go through what the process is going to be. And I'm going to keep these points up on the screen so that, if those help prompt you. And again, my job here is simply to moderate and keep the evening moving along and to collect the information on behalf of the committee. So I'm here as a neutral party just to keep it fun, keep it moving along. If you do have questions that come up, this isn't really the venue where we're going to be able to have dialogue. So if you have questions, remember that at any point you can email to this address. You might want to write that down. And one of the hopes is that, or intentions, it's not even a hope, I think it's going to happen, that there will be like an FAQ up on the website so you can see, you know, what some of these questions are. Yeah, please.
Correction to that.
Yeah, please.
That isn't actually an email address.
Oh, whoops.
What you'll see when this comes up, it's actually a form. And it'll be a form for submittal of questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good clarification. Thank you. Okay. So, a couple of ground rules for our time. Of course, this is a civilized place, the Deming Library, so as you're speaking, don't laugh, Karen. It is civilized. Treat everyone with respect, please. One person will speak at a time, so when you're feeling ready, just raise your hand. I'll hand you the mic. If you could start by stating your name. And because there's not so many of us here, we were originally thinking just 3 minutes, but I think we'll give you up to 5. Okay, so if you want to wax eloquent, you have 5 minutes. If you can stay focused on tonight's topic, please be quiet while other people are speaking and turn off your cell phones or put them to vibrate. And again, if there's more things that you want to share that you didn't get a chance while you're speaking, then you can write them down. Okay? Any questions? Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Now you just said submit questions to the website, so I'm not sure if it's okay to ask a question.
You can ask the question, so their job is to listen. If you have questions about the process, now's the time to ask those questions.
I'm one of the people that voted against the jail, but it's not because I don't understand the need for it, and I don't want to pump old money, new money into an old jail. It's more that in 2004, as you indicated, we voted for a portion of the tax to go towards it. I guess part of it is I'm confused where that money went, why that can't be accessed. I guess that's my question, really.
So how would you all like to do with kind of clarifications on the facts? Do you want to just have those written down and put up on the website?
Why don't we gather questions like that, and if we have some time at the end, if there's somebody here that can answer that question, they can do so. Okay. I'd like to get this question answered.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I think I'll let's go ahead and scribe if questions for clarification come up, just in terms of so we all have the facts straight. So if you have things during your time of commenting, just offer these up. All right, are we ready? Anything else about the process for tonight? All right, who wants to start? Do you want to keep going because you're on a roll? Okay, here, you get to use the mic.
Oh, actually, can I just, is it okay if I don't get it?
It's
actually, we need to catch you on.
And it's not that bad. You're going to like it. It's going to be great.
The mic.
Oh, gosh, it's going to be your moment. You can break the song. Okay, let's start with your name.
I am Leif Schumann. I'm a resident of Princess Road, Deming. So I support the concept of the jail. This all makes sense to me. It's just, economical, and it's also fair treatment. And so for me, what I would need is assurance that A, people of little means are disproportionately stuffed in jail while people of means escape that outcome. B, that if money is being, is directed where it's supposed to be directed, and actually, otherwise you would have my vote on this whole thing. I just see it would be just, whether it comes from property tax or sales tax or something less, more progressive. So how funding would occur. But I'm with you on the need for a jail. I know it needs work. I've actually been in it on a tour way back. And so it's just selling me on kind of efficacy.
Great. And then could you state the question one more time? The one
are disproportionately targeted because they simply don't have access to bail or something. That efforts are made to do alternative sentencing kinds of things. And the money from which it draws is fairly collected, you know, not property, well, whether it's sales property or something, I don't know what the taxing source would be, but that it feel fair.
And I think the first question that I heard you is there was money collected earlier on for a first phase, right? And where did that money go?
Yeah.
Was that the question you were taking? For the phase, was it 2004?
For the original tax.
The original tax, and what happened to that? Right.
So with that, I want to buy that tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, who's next?
I'm done.
Who's ready? You ready?
I don't know that I am, but maybe I'll take the first 2 minutes and then I can have something
There you
later.
go. There you go. Say your name first.
Mike Kaufman. I'm over by the Noon and Kelly, the edge of the 3rd District. I'm a property owner. I vote all the time. I voted against the EMS levy. I went up and told the council by voting no on that, I needed to take myself in there and tell them why I did. And why I did do that was because I think there's enough money being spent on my privileged white self, and that more of my county money needs to be spent helping the disadvantaged, the mentally ill, the people that I'm fortunate that I still have a brain that's functioned most of my life, and I've done okay in my time. And there are many people that just aren't born with that, or don't have it, or didn't get the food and the proper synapse as a child, and they struggle through it. And it seems that the system that my white culture has designed represses those people. And so when a vote comes up to protect me or spend money on keeping me safe, I don't buy into that argument. I want my money being spent on helping people become more civilized and have a better life, because by doing that, then I'm less afraid when I walk down the street. I want to know when I pull up on a street corner and the guy's panhandling for money, that he's got some place to go to get a warm place, get food, and get some help to bring himself better. That our society is not left for him, and the best way for him is to get the money on the street. Another thing in the background that I'll say about, you know, you drive down Mount Baker Highway and you turn your headlights on. Vast majority of people have their headlights on. And I've traveled all around this country, and I don't know what it is, but law enforcement does not turn their headlights on. And I went to one of the little fairs in the county, and the law enforcement was there looking for personnel. And I asked the guys, I said, the only conclusion I could come to was that you must be taught not to turn your headlights on for some reason. And the young deputy said, no, why not? And the other guy immediately had attitude. And it was like, if you can't, and the other kid knows, turn the lights on for safety. And if law enforcement can't even think to do that, then why am I entrusting them with a gun? They can't turn their headlights on, but I'm going to trust them to point a gun and carry a gun in my society. So if you can't even get number one right, I got a problem going forward with it. It's just me. And so that's, you know, that's part of it. I see in there on the timeline, the last thing you put up there was to do a needs assessment. Needs assessment. You went through that stuff pretty fast, and I don't know if that word was mentioned earlier in all the 10 years or how many years we've been doing this discussion, or what happened with all those bullet points that went across the board. What was the outcome of that? The studies and different things that happened. And I, as a taxpayer, Don't know what happened to the money. I, as a taxpayer, don't know what happened to all those issues and why we got to where we do. But in my mind, I work on different things, and the 80-20 rule in the universe comes to mind. And I think that my belief is that 80% of us do not need to be in the jail. There's a 20% population that there's something definitely wrong there. We need protection from them. But when you make a phone call in our society, just like with healthcare, you make a call to 911 or you know there's a response. The only response that comes to your house is guys with guns and guys in uniforms and law enforcement. Now, I have enough mental capacity to know to keep my peace and shut up, but I have issues with that, and it's just because I haven't done the fact. Thank you for your time listening to my story.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's next? Okay. And again, one of the things that we're trying to do is just stay, this is obviously a topic that can go a lot of different directions, but really staying as much as we can focused on the topic.
And I will give you a 30-second warning. Okay.
Brian Estes from the Cordova neighborhood. I was hoping, I guess, in part of this that we hear a little bit about the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force and some of the findings of the Bureau Institute. I think that would be very important for the general public to have a little feel of what that process is about and what some of the findings of the Bureau Institute are, particularly since the last set of events I had some probabilistic models about if you implemented a number of policies that they recommend, here's the percent with which you might reduce your jail sentence to the general population. I just think it would be very important for the public to have some basic understanding of a number of those concepts that go along with implementing the findings of the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force. And I think, quite honestly, from a public policy point of view, who should be in our jail? Who really needs to be in the jail in terms of getting the treatment of services they need to rehabilitate themselves and reduce recidivism. You can debate the location, you can debate the size, you can debate the cost, but to me, fundamentally, it really comes down to who should be in jail for what reason and for how long, and are there lower cost alternatives to receiving the treatment they need. There are many different ways to do that. And we have some challenges around that, and I understand that it's a state and local responsibility. But I think there really, before we get to the size and cost of the new jail, I think there needs to be a very healthy debate on who should be in our jail and how best to fund that at state and local issues here today. So I would like to see these listening tours incorporate a little bit more public education around VERA and around the efforts of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force. They're doing incredibly thoughtful work about how we can approach this a little bit differently for much less cost. When you contrast some of the home monitoring costs that the Deming has compared to Whatcom County, which is not using that quite as much, there's tremendous cost savings there. But I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we can produce more effective treatment for many Whatcom County residents at far less cost than having to be incarcerated. And I think we should explore some of those policies moving forward in these listening sessions. I would like to see us really fund and implement a number of the VERA reforms, or at least have a better understanding of what they might be, what they might mean in terms of the size of our jail. And by the way, I think vertical jails can be safe if constructed properly. That's about all I have at this point.
It sounded like it got a little softer. Maybe you're just a little quieter speaker. Okay. Was it okay from the audience? Excellent. I'm going to just keep on going down the line unless somebody's really excited. Okay. Do you want to speak? Okay. Yes?
Actually, I just came here to listen.
All right. Get inspired later on. Ready?
Just a couple of comments. Yeah, please. I am a little disappointed that there is not more exchange between in listening. Usually it takes two to dialogue. And so that's disappointing, and I hope that changes by the end of the tour. I voted against the jail. It was too big. It was too expensive.
Would you give your name?
I'm sorry, Helen Campbell, Whatcom County District 3. And I did not like the location. It was just too big, and I really think we need to do more to keep people out of jail. There are alternatives that can happen that can reduce the amount of people that need to be in. And that should be done before any kind of considering the size of the jail. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. And thanks for the reminder. Yes.
I think there should be enough people here that it's okay with
It
our
is,
chair.
yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
just change that now. Wait. Would you tell me, what about the location did you not like?
I think it needs to be more central to downtown, where the civic center is in the courthouse.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm gonna say, go ahead and say,
Yeah.
so you think,
I just feel it should be located downtown, in your civic center is.
Is that because it's closer to services, or could you elaborate on that?
Well, it's closer to the courthouse, it's closer to services, there are no services out in Ferndale. I don't believe in putting services like mental health and that kind of stuff, moving that out away from the downtown sector, the majority of our.
so you think it should, that should also be downtown?
There are a lot already downtown.
As far as size is concerned, I assume you don't like how large the proposed jail was. Is that correct? You wanted something that was maybe smaller? Am I hearing that right? You just said size. I'm just trying to figure out where you were on that.
I think the size should be determined after we find alternatives to putting people in jail that should not be there.
Okay.
And I don't think.
So that's kind of like the last point before, what are your thoughts? You need to
Exactly.
get the horse before the cart, not the cart before the horse.
And it felt like the car was before the horse. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're coming back right here. You ready? Excellent.
My name is Karen Wright, and I live here in Deming. And I just have a couple of comments. When you ask about who don't we want to see in the jail, I think about youth, and especially homeless youth, and how when we're considering what services to provide and diversionary tactics to use to make sure that the county partners with agencies that can provide alternative services to make sure that if kids get into jail, they're able to leave and access those services instead of being back in the same situation they were in prior to being incarcerated. And then the other thing is when considering delivery of services and even contracting out the services for the maintenance and running of the jail to avoid the for-profit businesses. It's a trend in our country right now where a lot of for-profit businesses are running prisons and as a result are charging ridiculous fees for basic services like telephone use and commissary items. And that's just adding additional punishment. Incarceration is the punishment. People shouldn't be punished by being charged fees for basic use of items like that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass the mic down this way, so if you want to speak.
Yes? No? Maybe you've spoken already. The gentleman in the very, Stephen, or you, or Bill, either of you want to say something?
I'm here to listen and answer any questions I might have.
And you know our sheriff, everybody? Bill Maltho? Great.
I'll just say, my name is Stephen Gockley. I have the good fortune, I think, of being a member of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, as are a couple of my fellow members here. So I'm here to listen also, but given the time and the crowd, there may be opportunities for you to talk directly to some of us also before the evening's over. And I'll certainly be available for that.
Let's hear from everybody to get everybody a chance to speak at once. Did you want to speak?
Sure.
Okay. Up to 5 minutes, your name first.
Hello, my name is Jared Burns. I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I really appreciate you having it out here in East Whatcom County. Who should be in our jail? Only people who have, in my opinion, only people who present with violent or other dangerous behavior to the community. And by community, I'm referring to our entire county. Location of the new jail, close in to Bellingham. I'd say no further out than Deming. Simply because the property can be purchased for a lower cost than property inside Bellingham. Size of the new jail should be half the size of the previously proposed jail. And I'm going to echo the voices that I've heard in that we need to be focusing on diversion, deferred prosecution. We shouldn't be putting citizens in jail who have mental health problems or chemical dependency problems, period. Unless, of course, they're a danger to the community. That's what jail should be for, to protect the community, in my opinion. The cost of the new jail was exorbitant. I'll never vote for a jail when you're talking that kind of price. I'll never do it, and I'll lobby against it every time. Something needs to be much more affordable. And the tax, the proposed tax to pay for the jail has to have a sunset clause. That tax needs to go away once the jail's been paid for. Otherwise, I'll never vote for it. And I believe we need a new jail, but it's got to be cost effective, it's got to be safe for the corrections officers, it's got to be safe for the inmates. We need to, as a county, we need to provide chemical dependency assessments for those appropriate in the jail. We need to provide Minnesota multiphasic personality inventories by a clinical psychologist in the jail. That's it. That's what I've got. Let's make this work for our community.
Stephen, would you tell me?
Jared.
Wait.
That was Stephen.
I got it messed up. It was Jared.
Jared Burns. Burns, yes.
Would you tell me, out of the things that you listed, what two are the most important to you?
Bring the cost down by half. And use diversion and deferred prosecution to keep people out of jail.
You're saying by half, is that the $98 million for the jail or the $200 million that we proposed?
The total, break it down. You got to break it down to half or I'll never vote for it.
So if you had $100 million, that included the diversion and the jail.
Yes, sir. And included in that, the cost to the people in the diversion programs needs to be reduced by half. Why should they be charged when they're already going into jail? I don't, it's an airplane joke to me. I think that's a cost that we as a society need to cover, and I'm willing to pay the taxes to do so. You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so I'm looking then to direction from the committee, and especially to you, Barry, about how each session, let me just say, what's becoming clear is that each session will probably be a little different because of how many people are here and the nature of the community and the conversation. So I saw a couple of people wanting to speak twice. It seemed like you all might wanted to also be able to ask folks questions. How would you like to proceed?
I think we need to be as flexible as possible. I think that's important. I think we need to. That's why we're coming to the community rather than just holding it in the big, Crystal Palace. And I think we can engage much better if we kind of do this and have the flexibility, having the flexibility to see what the room's like, see what the folks want to do. It's for us to learn, and you are all our professors tonight, so we appreciate it too.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody?
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. So as we then proceed, technically we are needing to leave here tonight at no later than 8 o'clock, just in respect of the library. And I'm also going to suggest that we adjust the timeline, or time constraints, so when you do speak it, let's keep it down to 3 minutes, just so we can really make it more of a dialogue. And I think if the council members have questions of you, then, either for clarification or something you're curious about, then, just let me know and I'll turn over the mic. So, Karen, you had another thing you'd like to say?
I just wanted to ask about the, I just wondered what the status of the property at Bounty Road is.
So the status of the property at the Bounty Road. Oh, and also we should answer that question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff Elko, but I think it's just sitting there at this point. We haven't done any work on it.
No, it's just sitting there.
So the county still owns it?
Yes.
Great. And then, if you had another question as well?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, in terms of cost and size, I don't know. And if I were to grab at some numbers, it would be, I'd just be pulling it out of the air because I'm not a student of this. So I rely on you folks largely to make a fair assessment of size and cost. I understand it better if you say, if you put it on property tax, cost per 100,000, that I can get because I compare it to school district or my 911 response or my, fire district. So in terms of cost and size, I don't know what to say. My concerns would be assuaged, as I think a lot of others would be, if I thought we were outperforming the nation as a whole. We just today on NPR or someplace, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. In the world. That's a pretty sorry company that we're in with. And so you could sell this better to me if you said that incarceration rates in Whatcom County are below national averages. And in fact, not only are they below, but we defer prosecution for certain categories of crime. And we only take the worst of the worst and put them behind bars. And you assure me, and the rest of us, that mental health and other priorities are right there up front. And that people are left in jail because that speaks to my personal safety. The problem with the bounty is, if you're a poor person of little means and you want to go visit your spouse in jail, do they have bus service? Is that a part of the plan? I mean, can people get out there? To me, an issue is just kind of maintaining family units and to have that in mind that when people go to visit or whatever, they can get there. Anyway, if those things can be addressed, then I'm ready to vote money. I know you guys need your jail. I know it's in poor shape, and I don't want to pump money into an old jail that is just trying to be rehabilitated. So,
I'm just going to jump right in. Sorry. Yeah. So would you tell me what two things are most important to you?
Well, fair treatment. I don't want disproportionately people of little means to end up in jail because maybe I can pay a bail bondsman or mortgage my house to get out.
Okay.
So I want fair treatment. I want people in jail because they're bastards and they need to be in jail, not because they're just low income and they can't avoid it. Anyway, I suppose that's number one. Number two, that we need every effort to put people other places first because it's just cost effective and it preserves family structures and it's the kind of humane treatment of people towards which we aspire. So I guess that was it.
Put other places first?
Well,
You're talking diversion?
Diversion, or if they're nonviolent crimes, I don't know, ankle bracelet thing, or whatever. I'm no student of this thing, but whatever you do that keeps them out from behind bars, and in fact keeps them in contact with their kids, or going to family meetings, or with their spouse, or whatever, so that families are maintained while they make their way through a system with supports that help them come out the other end in some kind of healthy way, which is a price tag. It might be more expensive to actually provide mental health services than it is to incarcerate. I don't know. But I trust your judgment on that. You guys come up with solid numbers.
Let me ask you another question. What two things would you feel that you would be willing to give on as far as are less important to you in order to get the two things that are more important?
I'm willing to pay money. I'm willing to pay taxes. You can charge me money for a fair system. I guess that's one thing. You can even locate it near my house, although that's be pretty inconvenient. Bus service would be at 7 in the morning and 5 at night. So,
is there a second?
Property tax.
Yeah, my whole guy would love it, so that's the upside.
So I heard the second being that first, the location is not as big an issue, but as long as it was within
it has to be
bus.
somewhere. I understand.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense to have it out of county, but it has to be somewhere so I can live with it. That somewhere is near me, okay, and I'm willing to pay for it.
Thanks. Great questions.
Thank you.
Okay, some other hands have come up. Thank you. And it probably is good to restate your name again anyway.
Brian Estes. I guess I have concerns about the way this slide is kind of driving the conversation a little bit. I would suggest it narrows the conversation in terms of let's get real specific about the jail location and size, cost. But really, to me, the debate or the conversation might be more constructive. It was let's talk about our public safety and criminal justice policies in Whatcom County and how that informs the need for a jail. Because there's other actors here, the courts, prosecutor's office, the sheriff, other Whatcom County policies that all have an impact on who should be in jail, for what purposes, and for how long. So I really think a more robust discussion, we should broaden this a little bit. We would focus on criminal justice policies, not so much just the jail. I just think when you're asking people about, well, how much should it cost, how big should it be? How do we know any of that until we've really discussed our criminal justice policy and all the actors that play a significant role in that? So, again, and then costs for the new jail, I think is somewhat of a narrow way to look at this. What are our criminal justice costs in Whatcom County? How much do we pay for behavioral health services? How much do we pay for diversion programs? How much is our drug court? We're not nearly using those non-jail resources to the extent we should, in my view. And that should be a very central part of the costs of criminal justice, not only just the operational and capital costs of the jail, but we're losing a big part of the argument if you don't look at criminal justice costs in general. So again, that's another example of how we're kind of narrowing this and focusing just on the facility. And we really should be having a much broader and more robust discussion of criminal justice policy in Whatcom County. So I guess I'm responding to this, but also suggesting perhaps a little bit different direction for some future, and also like some storyboards around the room of here's the incarceration reduction task force, here's what it's doing, here's what Vera has done, here's a snapshot or an executive summary of some Vera reports. Maybe have people mill around those and have a staffer explaining those. Maybe have somebody from the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force at these meetings, maybe at a couple stations to talk about those issues. I just think there's a lot of public education that needs to occur. Not only, quite honestly, for the general public, but a lot of elected officials in Whatcom County. When there was a debate by the League of Women Voters on the jail tax issue, the mayor of Linden was not familiar with the Vera reports at all. And so I would just suggest that not only for the public, but I think there's a lot of education that probably should occur among a lot of the local government officials in Whatcom County as well. Thank you.
Brian, diversion is important to you. I've heard you say a couple times now. Could you give me 2 or 3 diversion services that you think would be the best that we should really focus on?
So diversion services. So if you're just thinking about the recording, so when you ask a question, I'll just repeat it and the mic.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, there's a number of them in the Vera report. For example, the sobering center would be an example, fully funding or more funding for drug court, more funding for mental health court. There are also family courts. There are other therapeutic courts around Washington State. Whatcom County has a number of them. They don't have all of them that other localities have. DUI courts, that kind of thing.
Which ones would you prefer to see? If you had 2 or 3 that you personally want to
I
see?
would personally, mental health and drug court, I would like to see significant increases in funding for those things, so I think it would significantly reduce the jail population.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak again? And also, I think everybody in the room has spoken. Did you want to have a chance?
Oh, no. I'm on my break. I'm great. So I wanted to listen and very interesting.
Oh, my prayer, yes. Pleasure here. Thanks for being here. Did you want to speak again?
Sure.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't mention was, as a taxpayer, I don't like the use of sales tax. This is a property issue. I think our tax system is messed up just nationally, that Washington does not have an income tax, and so the property owner gets bagged with a lot of this stuff. But what I see in sales tax is the poorest are paying money, and they're the ones that most somewhat optimally end up in the jail sometimes. So they're paying money to somewhat supplement their incarceration. And it is about keeping the public safe, and that, comes back to, in America, it's been property owners that forward that. So I don't like the sales tax on things in any way, shape, or form. Penalizes that part of it. And, I know some, I guess, caregivers or the mental health staff and such, and they're at the bottom rung of income. And I think that they should be elevated to being part of the sheriff's staff, so that they are reacting instead of, again, the uniform showing up with the gun and the handcuffs. And a lot of the mental health people probably know a good part of these people that the calls are coming in on. And then, oh, that guy's, not taking this, whatever it is. It's somehow our system is, in many healthcare again, our justice system, our tax system, it's all broken in America. We end up paying constantly, I see, twice as much as most anybody else in the world, and we get the bottom end of the services. And I'm not that stupid. We are smart people, and we can do better than this. When I see the county putting the same plan back into the tax and onto the voting structure, basically dusting it off, and as you're saying, the mayor of Linden didn't really know much, but we're hearing, oh, the 6 cities are for this jail plan. Give me a break. There's no imagination. There's no, we can lead. We are smart people in this county, and I think that we can lead if we're allowed to do so. But when again, all the bullet points that come up, what seems to be is it started out as the jail, we got to redo the jail, and the jail tax, and we're going on in this thunderous rate for jail. And it's like somebody looking for a job and they don't quite get it, and then all of a sudden they're kind of bankrupt, and geez, I got to get something because I got to pay the bills this month. That's where we're at with the jail. We got to fix the jail. It's got to be done now. Well, we should have started back then with the needs assessment and dealing with what is real, rather than just going down this jail road. We're late, but so what? That's where it is. It takes another 10 years. Let's get it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Like coffee.
Yep.
I have a question for Brian. I appreciate your comments on policy reform, and I'd like to hear a little bit more of what you have in mind. Could you extrapolate, on that? Can you give us a little bit more?
Well, I attended a briefing that the Bureau folks did at the City Hall. I was just really impressed with their final report. And they had some slides in there that went through a number of their recommendations. And it said, if this is implemented, I think they had like 3 different columns of percentages, that this is implemented, it would reduce the jail population, a probabilistic model by X%. You add all those up, and it seemed like the jail census was dropping like by tens and maybe 100 people a day. Or I forget the exact details, but funding all that, how you get to full implementation of VERA, maybe all of it doesn't even make sense in Whatcom County, but to me, the starting point is to have a very robust discussion about our criminal justice policies in Whatcom County. That with the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force, I guess implementing their recommendation, that's the primary mechanism which was, I understand, the county council is going to receive the implementation steps. That to me is where we should start. And what should our policies be? What are the most effective steps we can take to reduce recidivism and to properly give people the treatment, or whether it's mental health or drug or DUI or whatever, to get them back on their feet. And that's just a more humane way to treat them, and they don't really belong in jail. And it's much more cost effective to provide those services in a non-jail environment. So those are the kind of policies that I would like to see the county work on. But I do think there's a fairly large gap, I think, between the jail discussion and where some of these criminal justice policies might take the county. I just think there's a lot of public education that needs to go on, both for the general public and a number of elected officials in Whatcom County. It's a tall order, but I think these sessions have the opportunity to do that. But I think you could reformat this a little bit to have, the video was good, it gave a history, but I think we're lacking some of the information on, to answer the question of who really should be in our jail. You could have I could envision like maybe 6 or 7 stations around here with some storyboards that just talks about the Incarceration Prevention Task Force, talks about what are some of the issues related to criminal justice policy that we should be discussing. And then we might be able to get to these questions. Okay. Was that helpful? Yeah. By the way, thank you very much for having this out here, and I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to these concerns. Sure. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it might be a good time for Stephen to share a few thoughts. Would that?
If you like, I'd love to.
Because we made several references to the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, and we have a couple of folks here from the task force. So, Stephen, would you be willing just to maybe give us a little 2 cents? Would that be helpful to you?
Yeah, if you give me just a little more direction on that.
Well, what when Brian is speaking to the question of policies, right? What are the policies that kind of underlay that we might look at before we narrow down into thinking about a jail? And when we think about prevention and reduction of incarceration, what sort of things came out of the Bureau report maybe that you could just highlight for us?
Well, let me take a little bit different angle from that.
Please do.
I'll welcome input from Bruce and Heather and Lisa and the sheriff for that matter. The biggest data point in the Bureau report for many of us was the fact that 59% of the jail population at any particular time is there in a pretrial status. They've been charged, they haven't been convicted, so they're basically innocent until proven guilty, but yet they remain in jail, and much of that is because, especially in Superior Court for more serious crimes, the only tools available to the judicial officers are bail, which many people cannot afford. So we focused on that population, and we are working right now, this very day we have a meeting, to try to come up with a best practice across the country, which is a pretrial risk assessment tool that takes some screening questions on items about an individual that have been proven by scientific data to predict the likelihood of a person, if released, to return to court for the conclusion of the legal process, and to, while they are out waiting for their case to proceed, to not engage in further crime. Many places, including in Washington State, Spokane, Yakima, King County, Thurston County now, are starting to adopt these. Bureau recommended that. We were already on track working on that when they made that final recommendation. So under the coordination of Judge Aaron in the Superior Court. We have a working group working on that. We're also working because it doesn't make sense to release people, even ones that you think are likely to behave and come back, without some sort of monitoring that they'll actually comply with that. So part and parcel with a risk assessment instrument to prompt those releases, we also want to put in place some monitoring services, some pre-trial monitoring services. Probably, I'm going to say, that would be housed with district court probation under Bruce's excellent leadership. So that's really the biggest impact item that one part of the task force is working on right now. Everybody should know that we have made really good progress. We're on the cusp of actually starting to work on an expanded triage facility that will have more than twice as many beds, 16 dedicated to acute mental health treatment and 16 dedicated to detox, substance abuse disorder treatment in the short term. So these are crisis resting places for people, and previously those people, if law enforcement would pick them up, they have a choice of either taking them to the emergency department at Peace Health St. Joseph or to the jail. And so that was maybe the main impetus that the county council directed the task force to be working on. We have funding in place, we have architectural drawings, community meeting has been held. I think they're doing some prep work now, and they might be breaking ground, if I recall, in the summer. And then the third leg of what the task force's work is the county health department has put together a plan for a program called GRACE, Ground Level Response and Coordinated Engagement. There are a known number in the dozens and dozens of people who circulate with frequent contact, either with law enforcement on the streets, or mental health crisis, or substance abuse acute episodes. Many of them are homeless, not all. There are some people who engage with these systems in crisis status frequently. And not only does that mean the interventions are more difficult and therefore a little less likely to be effective because they're coming in at a crisis point, but it also means they're more costly. And so the GRACE program, which the county is looking for a coordinated agency with right now, will be a way to do some intensive case management and agency coordination amongst all sorts of service providers to try to get a little upstream and manage the issues that often, if left untended, turn into law enforcement issues at the end of the day. So those three things, the triage center, the GRACE program, and some of the legal and justice systems issues right now, focusing primarily on pretrial processes, are what the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force is working on. If I could say one other thing, and this is slightly in response to your Tyler, we are charged as a task force with identifying and following and making recommendations based on best practices, which are scientifically validated, data-driven. There's a lot of gut feeling that has gone into criminal justice in the past, some of which actually is correct, and much of which actually is not correct. So we're obligated to give you information about best practices in the areas that we'll make recommendations in. So I just want to temper your question of what are the two things you, visitor or Ms. Citizen, would like to see us concentrate on. I'd like you to understand that that's not going to get you best practice information. It may be politically valuable for you, but I'm hoping that a lot of these decisions, the policy decisions and the citing decisions and so forth, There are good answers and there are personal opinions, and I encourage you to stay with good answers, which I don't mean to suggest that I'm belittling the listening sessions that you're doing. I think they're very important. And people should be able to speak to you about their thoughts. I just want you to be able to sort through some of that information as well as possible.
Stephen, can you mention the new committee that we're going to be adding?
Yes.
Index committee.
Yeah. One of the, from day one of the task force, we've identified the fact that if we're going to be evidence-based, if we're going to be making deliberative, sound decisions, they need to rest on real data. And very quickly we saw that we either don't have data that we need, or it exists in one silo that doesn't communicate with another silo, and the idea of coordinating our policies and our reform efforts across those silos. And when I say silos, I mean some data might be under the sheriff's domain at the jail, some of it may be administrative to the sheriff, some of it may be the city courts, some of it may be probation information, some of it may be social service information. So we've identified that we need both a lot more key data, and we need the ability to exchange and work across agency boundaries to use that data. So we just now, going into 2018, we've decided that we're going to create a fourth subcommittee to work on identifying the data we want, seeing what we have, making sure what we end up getting is accessible to the stakeholders who need it to do the criminal justice reform work we want. Thank you.
So council members, are there other questions that you'd like, or things you've heard so far that you'd like to get any other insights on?
Questions. I just want to make a couple of comments which I have learned over the last 3 years working in the government. One is, the question is very valid, that what happened to the money from 2004, 2006? You know, that jail tax was there. I think that there is a systemic problem in funding our governments. When we pass a tax, there is no sunset clause. We have open-ended, and it happens all the way at the federal level. You know, like they talk about, there are 600 different programs, nobody knows what it is, but they get in the budget line, they get funded, and nobody knows why and how, because 50 years ago it was a dire need, and it got funded, and then nobody took it off. And that's one of my pet peeves, is every tax, even property tax, should have a sunset clause. Because if 20 years from now, if it is just a regular thing, let the people vote, means the council people, and put it on again. And it gives a pause to rethink something. And that's a systemic problem. The other problem is that we wrap up everything in one tax, and we present it to people as that. Like, I'll give you the example of this jail. I think it's a little bit of a discussion point, not a question.
And I am going to keep you to 5 minutes,
like
everybody else, okay?
Okay. Because we said 0.2%, and that included capital costs, that included operating costs, that included the money going to the cities, small cities and city of Allentown, and that included money which we carved out for alternates. But the tax was presented as a one catch-all thing. And I had said in several meetings that we had talked really about $100 million jail, and everybody sees that and says, very expensive and everything. But we are spending, in the same time we pay off the bond, we spend close to $1 billion on operations. And nobody paying attention to the $1 billion, but everybody's worried about $100 million. If we save 10% on the operations, we get a free jail. You know, even with the numbers. But that was just an example. No, I'm not really disputing that. The thing is, if there's a capital cost, that should be pointed out that when we have this tax, this is the capital cost, this is the operation cost and alternate, and that should be very transparent and accountability. And that should be, when we pass any tax, that tax must be used only for that purpose. Because what happens, council changes every 2 years. And maybe the administration changes every 8 years, you know, more or less. Council definitely changes. And there is no institutional memory with the council. There is more institutional memory with the staff and the administration. And that never is evened out. And, you know, people like me come in, you know, we are talking about 2004 and you are wanting us to tell you what happened to that money. I don't know what happened to that money. You know, I mean, that's the reality of it. But that's how our system is. It's not council's fault or administration's fault, but we never look back. Whatever our rules are, they were devised in 1800s. And we keep going with the same thing. We never look back and say, let's take a pause and change some things. I think that's a bigger issue, even when you brought up. Okay, I'll just stop here. One more item. This is another big issue. We have only 2 ways to tax people. Income tax, sales tax and property tax. Back in 1800s, that was the only thing. That either you got goods to buy, or you had property. Almost everybody had a property. That was a fair way to tax. But it's not true anymore. We have no other alternate to tax people in a fair way. And we don't want to look at another thing. We are so trained that if we talk about income or some other way to tax people, we say, oh my God, this is going to be the end of the world. But both taxes are not fair. But we have no other choice. And another thing is, whatever the rules are, you know, if you do sales tax, then you have this problem, you have to give so much money back to the city. I was proposing, whatever tax we do, we must do it on the jail. After that, if there's leftover, any city should get it. But cities start getting money for the next 30 years, right from day one. And augment their general fund.
Thank you. Sure.
Yes, please. I have a question for the audience. I'd like to know if anyone here would like to share would you tell me, do you have a preference? Should diversion services and the jail be on a single ballot initiative, or would you like to see them separate? What's the thoughts of the audience? Anyone?
Great question. Thank you. Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Jared Burns still. I would like to see those as 2 separate issues on the ballot. And something I didn't think to add earlier is that we already have a 1.5% sales tax on alcohol. And that money can be used for chemical dependency and mental health services in the county. And if the law allows, perhaps some of that could be used for chemical dependency assessments and mental health assessments, both in the diversion programs and in the jail.
Thanks. Any other responses to the Councilman Bird's query?
Well, I would say since diversion treatment informs the size of your jail, I would suggest it be one integrated measure, and therefore you proportionally know operational capital costs for the jail, what your costs would be for diversion, and those costs could be extensive. Did I answer your question?
Yes, but I have a follow-up question for you.
Sure.
What if a ballot measure came for diversion services first, so that with the assumption that those services would decrease the need for the jail, and so the follow-up jail ballot would end up being smaller? Would that
Well,
be?
I guess that might make sense, that you know the scope of the jail, but that doesn't affect, more on the ballot. Currently, that wouldn't make any sense, but if you, by the way, Whatcom County has not raised their property taxes to the extent allowed by state law. That's correct. So your question about if we're kind of locked in, well, other counties choose to do things differently. So there is, you can't raise more revenue under existing law. I think it's a policy choice.
All right. Anybody else to the question about holding on?
Back in my mind, you lost the first vote in 15, you lost the bigger vote in 17. The voters know that they have the power on their side, and until you do something different, which would be give me the option to pay for mental services first, to show that you're rethinking, you're re-energizing, you're redeveloping a plan. Demonstrate to me as the voter that you've got something different in mind than another jail tax, because I just don't see that flying in any way, shape, or form at this point, until you give us a reason to believe.
So separate diversion.
Separate.
Doing them separate and doing them one first and then one later? Does that matter?
Prove to me first.
Uh-huh. Okay, anybody else to that question? Would like to speak to that question? All right. Council members, do you have any other questions you'd like to dig in?
Yes, you all have done. I have questions on my. I came to learn,
so that's what the listening said.
There was a proposal that someone mentioned to me the other day, and I thought it was an interesting proposal. And what it was that part of the reason for it was that there's some concerns about the women's facilities in the current jail and how those are up to par, and how we have so many women in such tight quarters, and how it's not humane to some extent. And so the proposal was that because diversion has worked so well with the juvenile center, and that is down to 4 to 6 kids on average, and some days that there are no children up there, that could we relocate the juveniles center to another location and move the women's block into that facility where they would have more room and more access to facilities. What would be the thoughts on that? Okay,
thumbs up. Any other thoughts on thumbs up? So the initial impression is positive without knowing the details.
And if you can speak up.
Oh, okay. I would just defer to correctional, professionals about whether that makes sense. It sounds like it would be reasonable, but I really don't. I'm not sure the general public has any knowledge or expertise to make a definitive judgment on that, but it sounds reasonable.
Thanks. Gotcha.
My one concern with the relocating, if corrections in this county agrees with your option there, is that it be placed on a bus route so that families can visit during visiting hours without
open the door. I understand what you're saying. That makes sense.
That's it. That's my only concern with that. Thank you.
So that being that making sure that families can reach each other and things are on, services are on bus lines has come up a couple of times this evening. Yeah.
I have a
question?
Now, you probably have heard, and I definitely have, that there was discussion or talk in the community that corrections should be separate from the sheriff's department. And it is in several counties, in several different places. And I have studied that. There's many ways to look at it, but I just wanted to get your input. What do you guys think?
So did folks understand the question? Yeah? So, okay, I think it might be helpful if you restated the question one more time.
In several counties, there are two separate departments. Sheriff's Operations Department, like sheriff's deputies and arresting, bringing people, processing, and corrections is a separate department. And the budgets are separate and organizationally they are separate. Right now, sheriff has both departments under sheriff's department. Okay? So, any thoughts on that?
Thank you. My only question regarding that possible option is, will it increase cost for the citizens of Whatcom County?
Did you have a thought on this?
Pardon?
Did you have a thought on this question?
I do. And I believe it's 36 counties the sheriff operates the jail. In the other 4 counties, they've gone to a system of, it's under the Board of Commissioners. In some counties, such as Yakima, they run the jail as an enterprise in part to, as a revenue producer. But I've got to say, you know, given the circumstances and the limitations of the building, and not to beat on my own chest, but the quality of the people that we hire at the sheriff's office and the standards we maintain are second to none anywhere in Washington. Our people always graduate first in the academy. We've had very few and scandalous events occurring in the jail. And that's a high liability area. And if the sheriff's not operating the jail to the best of his or her ability, given the resources that they have, given the limitations of the facility, then the people should be able to vote the sheriff out of office. And I think we're doing a very good job with what we have, and I don't think we should take that away from the people either. So I believe our model works well, as it does in most other parts of the state. Thank you. Actually, Snohomish County gave their jail to the board, or they have a county council. They hired someone to run it, and after about 9 years, they had a lot of problems, and they gave it back to the sheriff. And King County did that in 1968, and if you look back, just Google King County jail, lawsuits, problems. They're just inherent. So I like the job we're doing with the system we have. Thank you.
Is it Steve?
Yeah.
Steve, I like the words you said, best practices. I'm a big fan of models, and generally when in doubt, I turn to Finland, to tell you the truth. When either for infrastructure or education or policy decisions or something. My view is, so whether things should be separate, you know, discrete or combined or I don't know enough, but there are people that do know enough and that have done it successfully. And so my thought is just turn to those sources, those places that are doing it well, and document that they're doing it well, and then borrow from them, you know, and then proceed from that. So.
Hello, my name is Heather Flaherty. I live off of Lakeway in the Puget neighborhood. Tyler, I just wanted to respond to your question about the proposal for the juvenile detention center being repurposed for women. I had 3 thoughts about that. One, my request to you as our policymakers and our representatives would be to not just look at the technicalities of could we do it, but also looking at why is there such success with juvenile diversion? What is working there and how could we build on that? And second, I think it's really important for us to look at what are our community values around juvenile incarceration and could we have a goal to get that down to 0? And then third, in terms of the technicalities, I think that looking at the efficiencies, that's exactly what I would want my government to be doing and saying, okay, what are the resources we have and how can we reallocate before we go to taxpayers and ask for additional funds? So that would be my response. I think it's a great idea as long as it makes sense, and I hope that we build on the success there, because it's a great story, and I think there are reasons why that didn't happen by accident.
So there's folks on either side of you. Since Heather's got the mic, anyone on either side of her want to say something? You haven't had a chance yet? No? Okay. Okay. So,
Councilmember Buchanan.
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to take Councilmember Bird's word on the fact that he really could keep us here all evening. So, I'm just going to leave it to you. Otherwise, I will keep handing you the mic.
That's fine.
Yes.
Great.
All right. So, in fairness, I didn't say whose idea that was, but the sheriff and I talked about it, and he brought it up, and it was his idea. I just didn't want to put it out there and have a question like the idea. I'd rather figure it out. And I figured that was a better way to go. So this was his idea, and so I did talk to him.
And I'm sorry I had to step out for a minute. I thought it was a work call, but it wasn't. That's to get us through this transition while some major safety repairs and remodeling and take care of some of the public health issues in the building are taken. They've got 48 beds and an average daily population of 4, which really speaks to something they're doing very good in terms of diversion that we need to work on replicating in the adult systems.
Yeah, other thing, and this is totally off subject, and I apologize for that, but you brought up, you brought up how great the staff are there. And the other day I was talking to my brother. My brother's an EMT for Cascade, and he said that they had a call where they had to show up there for an individual that they needed to take to medical care. And they showed up, and this individual had equipped himself to get in a fight. He was looking for an issue. And he told me that the officers that he ran into were the most professional officers he'd ever seen in his life. He said that one of them was bit, and without any anger, he stood up, he walked away, someone else took his position, he cleaned himself up, several others got spit on. He said that regardless of what that person did, that person was treated with the most respect that he had ever seen. Just like he was in a suit and tie in a business environment, he was no one else. So I wanted to pass that along because he was really impressed. So thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Okay. So this one might be more controversial. What would you think about asking Bellingham to have their own facility and the county maintaining a facility for the county and the smaller cities? No one wants to touch that one.
You know,
I didn't get it.
It might be helpful too if you kind of like laid out some potential pros and cons, or what it would even imagine.
Yeah. I'm trying to be careful not to sway anyone. I really came to hear what you thought, and to learn from kind of what your perspective was. And so to be more, to unpack that a little bit more, right now the jail and the current facility manages for everyone in the county, including everyone in the cities. And so in other locations, it's my understanding that the cities are responsible for their own facilities, and that the county doesn't have the legal liability to supply those facilities to the cities. And so there could be an option to have a smaller facility in which it only works for the county and the small cities who can't afford their own, and then ask Bellingham to go and determine their own option for how they might proceed. So would that be something that this group would be interested in looking at more, considering data behind it? But is that an option, or is that something that we're not interested in?
Could I add, Tyler, that the county is responsible for all the felonies regardless, so it would be the cities are responsible for their own misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor. They contract with Whatcom County, as do the Native American entities, the two of them in the county as well.
Thank you both.
Thanks for the clarification. So, quick responses to that?
You mentioned that there's some number of cities, but I would bet it's not a lot of cities around Washington State. I think there's a tremendous economy of scale for having the county provide a jail in the fashion that we've had it now, much like counties generally with a public health entity in their county, and you don't have city public health departments. So I don't know, I'd be interested to see what the data is on it, I'm not questioning, but from my understanding, looking at some of the data, I would doubt there's more than 10 or 12 cities that operate their own jails. So I prefer to keep it a county-based model.
There's a couple of people in the scope,
Sure.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is James Erb. I live in the city of Bellingham, and maybe the sheriff can answer this question better than me, but my understanding is that the number of misdemeanors in the county jail from the city of Bellingham is quite small. It's not a large driver of the jail population, and getting back to Brian's point here a moment ago, there are economies of scale and having one facility in the county that accommodates all of their needs. So I would be very opposed to the idea of a standalone city facility to meet the county's needs.
Thank you very much.
Lisa McShane. I think we should look at all options. One of the things that is interesting to me is that Yakima, where we send many of our where we turn to for extra jail beds, the city of Yakima has their own jail, and the city jail is just. It's my understanding that they're booking misdemeanors and often then releasing them, so that it's just an easier, cheaper. So if we're looking to save money and have fewer people in our jail and incarcerate fewer people, I think that's an option that we should consider. I think Bellingham and Lummi Nation have the highest number of misdemeanors, so I think it's historically not been small. Bellingham's had a big impact on the size of our jail, so certainly worth looking at. And when you're talking about a city jail and its misdemeanors, and when you have the cells, they don't need to be like hardened cells. These are misdemeanors. The sheriff may be able to add more information, but I personally, I think we should be open to all of these options and really look as a community what is in the best interest for all of us.
And I was going to say, Bellingham has a bit of a unique situation with some of the misdemeanors they put in jail or sentenced are people that have done acts that endanger the public safety. Many of them have severe behavioral health issues, and they've dealt with them time and time again, so they get into the system, and it's not often an option for the judge to find some type of a lesser restraint, putting them on electronic monitoring. And the other cities don't seem to have that to the extent that Bellingham, that has the mission, a lot of people gravitate there with services for behavioral health. So it's kind of a unique problem. But if we can get together and agree on how this is going to proceed, if there could be agreement, it makes sense to have the economies of scale from my perspective.
Do you want to answer this?
I forget the question on it, but
About whether to have a Bellingham jail in addition to a county jail that would kind of serve different purposes and populations.
my gut opinion says, yeah, we're all in this together in the county, and it seems to make sense to have one operating center. Lisa's point, though, is, and the gentleman in the back, there's so many models in the world, and how are they working? How can we help join that community and spend less and get better services? I was recently down in Southern California, and the Las Vegas sheriff was on the radio, and he made a really important point about the shootings that happened, and that, again, our tax system and our economy has taken the money out of mental services and out of social services, and it just keeps getting laid back in the people that have the guns and the bars of the jail. And that it's on our society for the cuts that we've made to our taxes and to our system that has put us into this dilemma of the only thing is, there you go to jail. That's all we got. Nothing in the middle. And I'd like to challenge our new council member here in that I studied an entrepreneurship at his office and with him. And one of the things you learn in that is to rethink, re-energize, redevelop a plan. And that's a mantra that you have, sir, and love to see some rethinking and redeveloping in your showing that, I believe, with some of your questions possibly rethink this one.
Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yeah, I see. You guys can talk, you know.
One of the dilemma we have as a council that our current jail needs repairs badly, and I personally have said several times it's terrible when we are approving $3 million, another $7 million, another $10 million into fixing that jail, and it is unfixable. To some extent, we have to do that. How long you think, like your thing was, prove it to me, and then I will go for the next one. In your opinion, how long we as a government should wait to make that decision for the new jail and keep pumping money into this jail which we're going to demolish?
Wow, great question. Okay, how long? Yeah, please. Excellent.
Tomorrow. Start John County, District 3. County. Tomorrow. Start planning for the jail tomorrow. We shouldn't wait at all. I think the whole problem with the jail being voted down was there was no detailed plan. It was all conceptual. It was this artist rendering of what it could look like. And when questions were asked about details of addiction, behavioral health, they were vaguely answered. They were elusive. So I don't think there's any waiting. That plan should start tomorrow.
Do you want to say anything else to these questions? Like what you think, if you could do it the way you saw fit, what you think is needed?
I just think that, like everybody else has said in here, we really need to look at the options. We really need to look at inmate reduction programs as part of the new jail. But also, the new jail needs to be in the plan. And it all fits together.
What is your sense of urgency? When you say it happens now, what drives your sense of urgency for this?
Well, it's the fact that it's going to take 10 years.
Oh.
And from the day you start.
How that goes, yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the council members that you'd like to probe on?
We have about 10 minutes left. Would it be possible, Sheriff, I believe you answered Lee's question to him earlier, if I was correct. Would you be interested in answering the question? I don't know the answer to his original question. I think there's some people in the room that would be curious as well.
Yeah, I can answer it generally. I don't have a bullet point with me tonight as to where the money went. But first of all, it's important to say that sales tax is still being collected at 1%. It was promoted to the voters that it was going to be used for the construction and the operation of a 150-bed minimum security jail work center over on Division Street. It was also told to the voters that, or the voters were advised that the plan was in 5 to 7 years to liquidate that building and use all the capital assets, money that's gained from the sale, towards the construction of a new facility. Well, a couple of things happened, I would say probably politically. The cities were giving a significant portion, and I would want to say about a third of the money, over a 7-year period, because the jail was on booking restrictions for many, many years, and the city couldn't get inmates into the jail. So all of a sudden they had this expense, and the county gave them large sums of money. I think in the terms of Bellingham, it was somewhere around $2.5, $3 million over that 7-year period, and smaller cities less. And then around 2007, over my objection, the then council, none of these people were present, and the former executive made a decision to use that jail sales tax fund to pay for any of the escalating costs in the jail. So when personnel costs went up, food costs went up, they were all paid out of that jail sales tax. So there's still money in the account. I mean, I don't manage that. That's managed by the executive's office, and the council oversees that. But I think some of those funds were not used for the purpose that they were originally intended, which was frustration. And part of that was also to open up a triage center. And there is a triage center on the building, but they never funded it operationally where it could be effective for law enforcement. It's always, so now I'm glad that's moving forward. But the other thing to remember is, you know, all the staff it takes to operate that work center and all the other costs for medical care for the inmates that are out there, that is also paid. That was part of that was told to the voters. It was going to be for the operation of that facility as well as the construction. And I think it cost about $7 million to build it back in 2005, 2006.
Great. Thank you so much for giving that background. Good.
Actually, I don't want to follow up with just a quick question.
Yeah.
Would this, what are the thoughts of the group on whether if the council were to change that back so that those funds went back in that reserve account and were saved for the reason that they were originally intended, and that the increased operation expenses were taken out of probably the general fund or someplace where they should have originally been taken out of? Would that be something that you're in favor of or opposed to? You show of hands in favor.
All in favor?
Well, it'd be more honest, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree, yes.
I don't think the cities are going to get.
Or if you don't know, maybe, or if you don't know, so not sure.
2004,
Yeah.
150-bed facility was, and that's what we would have had.
Yeah.
And that wasn't constructed, that was built.
Oh,
it's a minimum security.
Minimum
facility.
on Division Street.
Yeah.
I see. Right. Okay.
Well, I really appreciate that question coming up right from the beginning. So what happened to that money? You know, just because it's really important that people feel clear and feel like that the process has some integrity. You guys feeling?
There was a bullet on that presentation. It went by really fast, but there was a bullet that went by that talked about that. And
yeah. Well, I want to say a couple things first, because we're going to need to wind up the session here. First, I want to thank Marty for taking notes, my colleague Marty Solomon, and for Genevieve for helping out with the timekeeping, so thank you both. I also really want to thank our council members. I think that your vision of making this process happen, and like, let's go, and let's start listening, I feel like that had inherently came from such a good place, and I just want to thank you for that. I especially want to give a shout out to Bill Elfo, because I feel, at least for, how many of you are actually in Mount Baker School District area? Okay, at least some of us are here. Just how grateful we are for your service out here. And I think I speak for everyone in East County of how grateful we are. And from the Incarceration Prevention Task Force folks, thank you all for your good work and for showing up tonight. And for everybody else who's here, just for giving voice and making this a priority, because it's a really important topic, and it's going to have a long-standing effect for our community. So, us, like you say, putting our best thinking, that we're smart people, that we can think this through. I really appreciate that. So okay, so we're going to wind it up, and hand the mic back over to you.
well, we are so grateful that you came out and spent some time with us tonight. It's so important for us to hear. That's why we feel the urgency as well, and that's why we have set out on trying to find out what the public really, how they feel. I feel that was a step that was not, it wasn't done, not to this level anyway. So again, thank you for coming, and if you're around one of the areas where we're throwing them, it's every 2 weeks. Come out again. We'd love to see you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.